Hisoka is back. This is such a surreal moment. For the entire Succession War arc thus far, the idea of Hisoka actually being involved was like more of a legend. And in fact, the last time we saw our favorite vigorous battle clown was way back in 2016. So we've had around 8 years of Hisoka-less existence. It was a very empty time. But Hisoka is here to fill us all back up, as well as potentially fill himself up, because what is with that tracksuit, with the heart and the arrow pointing directly at his butt and everything, and Hisoka, what you doing? But I think what I love most about this whole situation is the completely anticlimactic way that Hisoka was found. Like, he was literally the second guy we checked. And after all of the, alright everyone, we need to find Hisoka. He could be anywhere disguised as anyone, and it's going to take all of us working together, trying our hardest to find all of the clues to, oh wait, he's right over there. It's such a classic Togashi anticlimax, which works really well for Hunter x Hunter because it makes the world feel more realistic. And I also think that this was very necessary in context of the hiatus. The last chapter, our first chapter back, was a bit confusing for a lot of people. They just jumped straight back into Hunter x Hunter, and it was like reading a whole different series with all of these characters, unfamiliar characters. So I do think it was very important to get our bearings back here by injecting the chapter with a solid shot of Hunter x Hunter that is Hisoka. I mean, the thing is, we are already in an arc featuring primarily new characters. The only real familiar protagonist we've had is Kurapika. I mean, yes, Leorio was here, but it's not like we're spending any time with him. So reintroducing Hisoka feels like we finally have a core element of the series back. However, I should say that this probably all but kills the Illumia's Hisoka idea that I enjoyed so much, and that's not a bad thing. As far as I'm concerned, the only important thing is that we have Hisoka. However, as my last gasp of copium, I will say two things. Thing number one, we never got Lynch's answer. She asked the question, and she did a punch, but we never got the actual confirmation of what the truth is. And also number two, countering someone instinctively like that it's a very assassin-like thing to do. So maybe there's an incredibly convoluted scenario where Illumi is impersonating Hisoka, whilst Hisoka is impersonating Illumi, because they're both completely capable of doppelganging one another. Illumi has even done that with Hisoka before, and they have almost precisely the same height. But until further evidence comes into things, I'm gonna let go of that crazy conspiracy idea, because I am just so damn happy to have my beloved murder clown back. My favorite panel was, of course, that wonderful smirk given to Zakuro, which is just, classic Hisoka. He doesn't need to project his aura in any way to be intimidating. All he has to do is smile at you. Because when Hisoka is smiling, that means that something very, very unpleasant is likely to happen. In general, I love the look he's going for. We almost never get to see like the hair down and makeupless Hisoka. He kind of just looks like a regular dude until he turns around and you see that heart pointing straight up his ass. Like, Hisoka is trying to be stealthy and blend in, but he's not trying that hard. And really, the whole thing just hit me with a wave of nostalgia. The Succession War is still such an unfamiliar environment and tone for Hunter x Hunter, so it's bizarrely comforting to have this familiar element back. I say bizarrely because, again, having Hisoka around generally means that the bad things are about to happen. I also really loved Lynch's blunt strategy for finding him. You know, the whole, we're just gonna punch everyone over a certain height until we maybe find Hisoka. So I gobbled that up, but I actually think that's a great representation of Lynch's strategy. Maybe it'll get done if I just keep punching people. And especially when Henry said, once you find Hisoka, don't do anything until I get there. But to find Hisoka, Lynch has to do something, and now she's lying unconscious on the floor. I wonder if they're gonna leave her there. What this chapter has cleared up is why the Chara and Jiyu families were tracking down Hisoka to begin with. It's been a very common thought that they also wanted to kill him to prevent future troop-based anarchy, but I also flagged in the last chapter that it could be the complete opposite, and that's turned out to be the case. The Chara and Ziyu families want to enable Hisoka to kill Murder the Troop. However, as always, it's a bit more complicated than that, because at the very least, Wang also wants to use the troop to destroy the Hale Leaf family if possible. Wang is the Chara underboss, by the way, a name I remember because Wang means penis. But this chapter excels at one of Togashi's finest features as a writer, which is creating a focal point of chaos. He is a master of crafting those Flashpoint style situations where the outcome is impossible to predict because there are just too many variables in play. So we've got all of these characters doing the plannings and the schemings, but also very ready to improvise, because things could go in any direction at any second, and all of those directions are probably bad. On the Jiyu side of things, Henry had a fascinating scene in this chapter with another classic Togashi feature of just adding wildly unnecessary detail. It's something that I really have come to love. But when Henry was talking to the soldier dude and he was just going on and on and on about why his information was trustworthy, I was just like, any other writer would probably not do this. They'd come up with like a clever one-line done and dusted reason, but it's fascinating to read because it gives us an insight into how Togashi thinks in that sort of excruciating realistic detail. And again, it makes the world feel very deep and very real. Something I was not expecting was a surprise new Nen ability, and not from Henry. In fact, not from anyone currently aboard the Black Whale 1, or indeed aboard the good ship of life. A new post-mortem Nen ability with the interesting subtitle of La Vie en Rose, which means life in pink, or basically looking at life with rose-colored glasses. La Vie en Rose is also very famously a song titled by Edith Piaf, one of history's most prolific singers. If you're not familiar, it was also one of her songs that featured in Inception as the wake-up call. That one was No Regrets. For such a morbid ability though, especially with the corpse, where it's all like, oh, it's incredibly positive for such a disturbing ability. Because when you get down to it, yes, it's a corpse disposal power. A post-mortem Nen beast is either conjured or emitted, and then it manipulates the body to be disposed of. Very useful. But it does make me wonder what kind of person the original user was. Because generally, I think that we have a tendency to associate post-mortem Nen with feelings of anguish and grudges and all of the bad things like that. But Nen responds to all emotion. And I imagine that in this case, the user left this legacy because they were so overwhelmingly positive, looking at life through rose-colored glasses. Or, in this case, much more optimistically, looking at death through rose-colored glasses. The user was probably someone who treasured what they had, which was the Jiyu family. So in death, that overwhelming feeling has persisted. It's a really cool ability. And I like that Togashi is continuing to explore this more unknown world of Nen, and on a much more mundane level as well. Like, post-mortem Nen isn't always some grand act of power. Sometimes it's just an average person leaving their small mark on this insanely gigantic world. I also do quite like that Henry spent about 10 minutes on his mission before he inevitably gets called back by Zakuro, because they found Hisoka so quickly. Again, the second guy they checked. And it makes me very keen for a scene between these two, because they have that whole magician mystique in common. But with this chapter, we also cut back to focusing on the Cha-Ah family a bit more. And in particular, Sudonke, he has a great scene. If you don't remember, he was the one majorly fanboying about the Phantom Troop when Feitan thinks Nobunaga stepped into their territory. And here he has this hilarious bit about trying to buy some shikishi, which is like, classic Japanese autograph paper. But it also leads to something which could either be a very big something or a complete nothing. The whole logistical explanation of how people can order things from the human realm to be delivered to the Black Whale 1 via planes and drones, that is either going to be a very, very relevant plot point, or it's going to be Togashi just overthinking things again, going down this spiral of logistics. Like he did back in the day with that whole chapter about explaining the various types of auctions in York New City. As mentioned before, Underboss Wang gets some nice time in 392, very correctly deducing that they have no hope of really manipulating the Phantom Troop to suit their causes. And again, correctly, he also deduces that the troop are only going to cause more trouble by robbing Tier 1 after this whole Hisoka business is done. But it's really nice to see the troop receiving this kind of respect from the Mafia underworld, because I think it's often easy to forget that the Phantom Troop are in a whole league of their own when it comes to Nen users in this series. I think it's because we went from just learning that Nen exists to immediately meeting the troop. And it was only afterwards that we got to experience these more middling levels of Nen. But also during York New City, there was a distinct impression that the troop were always underestimated. Like that whole disaster with the 10 Dons and the Shadow Beasts. But here we get to see the notoriety and veteranosity being played out in real time. Not so much because of their power just yet, but because of their display of experience. There is a very stark line of contrast drawn between the troop and Luini in this chapter. Luini has done, quite possibly, the worst thing he could have with his ability by launching essentially a head-on assault against 3 troop members. And not only is he completely unaware of their abilities, but he has also admitted to completely misjudging them in terms of personality. So basically, Luini is jumping into fight battling here and working off nothing. I mean, at the very least, if he knew what kind of people they were, he might have some chance of predicting their Nen abilities, or at the very least how they might use Nen abilities. At least that's what experienced Nen users would do. Which we do also see here, because despite their astronomical power, Vinx, Feitan, and Nobunaga are quite content to sit and calmly wait, maybe read a magazine. And in fact, they even discuss further consolidation strategies like bringing in Franklin and dividing into pairs. Even though they are potentially the most powerful people on the ship, they know that they need to be careful, because all it takes is one weird Nen interaction, and that is the death, which I imagine was only further nailed into them as a result of Uvagin. Now with that said, I am unbelievably excited by the end of this chapter, because it promises something we've been waiting for far too long, which is the potential of finally seeing Benolanov's Nen abilities. There are very few Phantom Troop members whose powers are completely unknown. In fact, thinking about it, I'm pretty sure that Benolanov is the only one. 1. All we know is that Benolonov is an enhancer, and I should say that we only know that because of the Hunter data book, which has not historically been, the most accurate source of information in the past. So while I do think it's likely that he's an enhancer, this could go in any direction. I also imagine that Benolonov is completely overpowered in small, confined spaces, like say the small, confined room that we're currently in. So Luini in this situation really is like a mouse trying to taunt a lion. He just has no idea what he's stepping into because he's only been a Nen user for a handful of days, maybe a week at most. And like his other Haley family members that we saw in 391, he's just completely arrogant and drunk on all of the newfound power he's acquired. But considering that each of the Phantom Troop have had absolutely ridiculous abilities like conjuring Jupiter or even transmuting a miniature sun, I really cannot wait to see what Nobunaga brings to the table here. It might not be as big and flashy as the others, in fact you could practically guarantee it isn't, but I can also practically guarantee that it will still be just as overpowered. And then things can get really moving. Because the reason why these three are still on tier 5 is because they agreed to kill the Haley assassin, aka Luini, and Luini has gone and made their job far easier for them than it should have been. But after that, the troop can start moving. Meanwhile, the all-out Mafia war can begin, and the entirety of the lower decks can be destabilized just as tier 1 currently is. Right now, the best place to be is probably on tier 2. That is currently the only deck with no problems whatsoever. But we are seriously ramping things up at quite an alarming rate here, bringing Mizai Storm's fear of complete destruction one step closer to reality. We are 2 chapters in, and already so much has happened, and I cannot wait for more.